on
makes
this.
me laugh when you say that.
Well, we got to start with something.
So this has been a discussion for us because it's like, okay, how are we going to start the podcast? And well, hello, I think is taken. And
Howdy seems a little too.
meh, meh. And so hola was not it. So
So, aloha.
aloha.
Today will be an aloha.
I'm so glad that you said aloha, and then you followed it up and you said from balmy Houston, Texas. And it's the truth. It's cold kind of for us, but it's still balmy. Like, what is
Yeah,
that?
I can't figure out what's happening in my arms right
Yeah.
now. Like, am I sweating? Anyway, it's
A
somewhere balmy.
situation.
It's an aloha. Yeah. Hi.
Hi there.
So good to be back in your studio.
So much has happened since the last time I saw you.
So much.
We've celebrated Christmas, we've celebrated a new year, and then,
And then so much has happened since that, right? We've
yeah.
kind of got to touch on.
What's going on in LA, just so disheartening and so sad and so heartbreaking. And actually, that leads right into my win. Our youngest daughter, lives in the south part of LA, and she was really nervous when the fires first broke out, as you can imagine, and they were spreading to who knew where. And so she was able to come home for a few days, and we got to spend some unexpected time with her. And we were so proud of her because she was connecting people that needed to evacuate that she knew. And
Oh,
we were able to send home some supplies that we thought our community might be able to use. But that's my win. It's sort of sad and then a silver lining.
yeah,
And
you got to
so,
spend time with her being back
yeah,
here.
yeah,
She didn't
it
get to
was super nice.
It is, but my gosh, it'll be that talk about reframing. I mean, LA is about to have the biggest transition
And
in
history, I would
history.
think, that we know
It's
about, right?
mind-boggling to really wrap your head around
Yeah.
of the enormity
Yes.
and the impacts
That
that
is
have
so
been.
true.
And I'm the one who do not like watching the news whatsoever, and I am kind of all in on this. Like, all of the stories and, just thinking that social media really does keep us abreast to stuff that's going on and positive stuff as well. Humanity doing the raddest stuff for each other.
Yes.
But it's been, yeah, we're all glued to it right now because
Yeah.
we're all part of it.
And I know you're from California, so this is especially
This is very
touching for you. So,
And it's like the shift, I think, is what's interesting. But yeah, so we'll see. Well, how we're still in it. And obviously, when this airs, we'll be past it ideally, and hopefully on the mend for them. But right now, they're
yes.
still in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what about a win
Um,
for you?
My win is just after the holidays and kind of feeling the slowness felt really nice, and I thought maybe it was my time to maybe slow down, and then the universe played a little trick and revved business back up. So, a couple huge new projects in the last week that now I'm like, okay, so I won't be quiet for a while. So now I'm excited. Very fun projects, great clients, and a couple that, repeat clients, which is always like our goal,
The
right? When we
repeat
get
clients,
Yeah,
right?
it feels so nice.
God love the
So
repeat
nice when they,
clients.
you're like, oh, you do like me. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So those are mine. So
Love that.
I know.
Well, keeping in mind, of course, the people in LA during all of this, but this is a podcast about design, and today we're going to take on the topic of reframing the experience for the client
Yeah.
and what that looks like. And so, one of the things that you and I have talked about is that talking about money is never comfortable.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you're talking to about it. It seems like a very uncomfortable topic. And in order to work with clients, we absolutely have to talk about money.
Right.
How
Yeah.
early do you talk about money?
I start pretty much in the first meeting. So we kind of, if it's an in person, we talk. If it's a phone conversation, a little bit, but in person for sure. Going through and seeing what kind of their thoughts are on. From Terry Taylor, of the coach that I think I mentioned previously, but she talks about budget on the fly. So kind of getting your client comfortable with talking about like, well, okay, so what do you think a couch? And then when you get to that number at the end, then they really had a buy-in on it because they were kind of calling out
In the
what
process.
they were in the process of it. Because I do find, and it's just natural, we've all learned, like you don't talk about money, politics, or religion.
Right.
So we'll talk about money. Well,
Right.
the other two we'll leave behind. But it's so important though, because we're not asking somebody how much money they have.
Right.
It's what you're comfortable spending
Exactly.
and letting go of on
Right.
this project.
Right.
So they're very different. And so it's important though. And I hope at this point now, getting the clients to the where now we just talk, it's just comfortable. Like,
Right.
you know,
You can make it
you can
comfortable,
make
right,
it
with the way
comfortable
you
by
approach it.
really
Yeah.
just determining from their comfort zone what they're willing to spend on and where their points are of contention are, where they're like, I don't really value a $5,000 rug, but I'll go to town on,
A
my
piece of art
chandelier or a
or
piece of art.
yes,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
So just knowing where those rub points are is huge.
Exactly.
When
That
do you
is
start?
right from the very beginning, and, I always frame it by saying, "I don't wanna design something that's lower than your expectation in the same way that I don't wanna design above your expectation." My favorite is when somebody says, "We don't have a budget."
Oh,
That's my favorite.
I love it.
So, the second somebody says that,
Fool
my
me once.
response is right. My response is, "So you would be comfortable at $1,000,000?" And then just am very quiet while I watch the wheels, fall off. And, depending on the project, they may say yes, but most often it's, "Well, that's not what I was thinking." And I'm like, "Okay, so that number that is in your brain kind of flashing in neon lights, that's what I wanna talk about,"
Yeah.
you know?
Like,
And then a lot of times that's when you first see the sort of sticking point between the partners, right?
yes.
And
Such a good point.
sometimes, and this will go on throughout the process, right? I'll look at one or the other and I'll go, "You probably need to go back to work right now to make some more money today because I think we're going to be needing that," and it breaks the ice and
I
it makes it
love
it
that. You
makes
have
it
to make it
fun.
fun.
It does.
And then when there's a savings, like we just had $130 like savings the other day, which is, when you have $1 million budget on a,
Right. Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But it's so exciting because I was
Right.
like, oh my God, where are we going to spend it? So it's kind of goes like, don't spend it all in one place. Could that be
Right.
my heart?
You're getting
Yeah.
a couple of more picture
Yeah.
frames. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just, but to make it not so stressful
Yeah.
for them because it is. And I think a lot of couples, though, they even haven't discussed because even in their own home, that's not a conversation that's comfortable. How much
Exactly.
are we spending and how much do we have extra? Some of that's not all like real fluid happening at home.
Exactly.
So then you really get to it when you're with them, and it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah, it exposes a lot of sort of what you're going to take on with
Yeah.
that client during
Yeah.
the process. I think also for me, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but when clients first come in, I mean, we are both in the luxury space, right? And these clients are titans in their industry. Oftentimes, they're used to being the smartest person in the room, the most educated, the most capable. And they come in here to the studio, and there's like this, I don't know, deer in the headlights look,
Right.
and they're like, "What is this gonna cost me? What is this person what is the value that you're gonna bring to me? What does all of this mean?" And, a lot of times as we go through the process with them, you sort of feel the exhale in the room where they relax.
Yeah.
You can see the body language change. They might lean in, or you just kinda see a smile instead of an "oh, no"
But
look.
don't you think that it's so much of that fear and is either whether they've watched stuff on TV or they've heard from a friend.
Mm. Ugh.
There's so many heard from my
Heard from a
friends
friend.
that you're like,
Mhm.
I need to talk to that friend and find out that designer's number because I do want to talk to her or him. Like, what are they doing to the industry? Because
Mhm.
most of the designers I know don't just go willy nilly and
That's
then
right.
bring stuff, show it, and then invoice them later. But apparently that's happening
Mhm.
a lot.
Right.
But and that's what the clients we're getting
Yeah.
are afraid of, which
Right.
is completely understandable.
Right.
I wouldn't be so nervous to hire somebody and have no idea what the deliverables, what their budget, and so that it's that budget versus investment conversation, which is so
Mm.
tricky. The wording is
You talk
so
about this
because I
often.
love the
Yeah.
wording,
Mhm.
and when you talk investment, because there is an ROI, like furniture, for
Mm.
instance, it can move with you.
Right.
So building a house, of course, there's that and the investment in that. And then, but what you're putting in it, what we're hopefully putting in it is stuff that's gonna stand the test of time, and it's the things that, they can recover later or restain because they love the style, but maybe the fabric's changed.
Right.
All of those things. So there are pieces that are with them for a long, long time. So
Right.
they are investments.
Right.
But
And oftentimes there are those specialty pieces that are probably going to be sold with the home or they're not going to work in the next house.
right.
And they have to figure out their tolerance level for those specialty pieces. But one of the things that comes to mind for me when I think about investment is in the remodel space. And that is if I can look at a remodel and I can see where we can turn a flex room into a possible future bedroom for resale
Mm,
by adding the closet at the time of the remodel, making sure there's egress or a window that opens to a full 3x3 for a fire escape.
right.
If we can do that during the remodel process, we can actually add value to the home that they can truly recapture, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's important. And I'm sure that you see that often, or maybe even in the new home build where we
Yeah.
can capture space.
That's a great point, though, in the remodel field, because we've talked about construction and how much we both
Hmm.
love in that space planning.
Hmm.
And so those moments where
Hmm.
it's like it wasn't thought of before, and it just feels so good to find
Mm.
those extra 24 inches.
Yeah,
And, it doesn't have to be a walk in closet, for goodness sakes, but just somewhere that, yeah, that the realtor comes in and can make that an extra bedroom. It's
right,
brilliant.
right.
Um,
And sometimes I tell my clients, I can't weigh in on whether or not this is going to add value. You should call your agent
yeah,
and ask, his or her thoughts on this for like long term value on the home. But for furnishings, they may or may not work in the next house. If you're buying, true estate pieces or antiques or something, of course, those can 9 times out of 10 be worked in.
yeah.
But the rest of it is what is the client willing to spend?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what do you love? And what do you love?
Yeah.
And so where can we kind of figure that out? And in that, so in the space of the new construction, which we both do, and the
Mm.
remodel, which we both get to do.
Yep.
So I've got a client right now, um, just bought a beautiful home. Um, Price tag was quite large, but walking through the home, there's very little design element
Mm,
to it.
mm.
Where they went hard, they went real hard, and it's kind of so strong that you're like, okay, we got D
Can't.
that. That's
Mhm.
got to go. Um, but there's very few moments,
Mhm.
and I love moments in a house where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that was, ooh, a surprise. People are doing them in patterns and spaces, but when you just want a moment, at most corners you turn in some of these beautiful homes, and it so the my client is a little bit bummed because now he has to put those moments in because they weren't done, and the,
After the big price tag.
after the big price tag,
Yeah.
and the conversation was this they ran out of money. I mean, there's zero doubt that this all happened because it was like, I'm sure it was drawn into the plans in a house like this, but they ran out of money because construction cost comes in and just other things
Mm,
happen, right?
yeah.
And so that
So now
conversation
your
with him,
client has inherited that.
and he's inherited it. And
Yep.
so, and we have that with our clients all the time because often the budget that they think they're
Yeah.
doing is different. And so that conversation also, right, with how we handle that, because we work with the builders.
Right.
They're fabulous and we love them in our relationships. But at the same time, we recognize our clients understood a different experience than the builder
Exactly.
sold.
Exactly.
And so then we get to be the one who tells them there's no Santa Claus, like, on the regular, right?
Yeah.
So
This actually is gonna cost money. Yeah.
it's going to be a lot more. And oh,
Yeah.
now you can't get your furniture because that budget just got
Yeah.
taken.
Or a lot of times what I see is the secondary spaces, the secondary bedrooms and that sort of thing. Those budgets go down and we try not to take away from the spaces that the homeowner spends the most of their
Right.
time in, the kitchen, living room, study, and primary suite. We try not to take from those. Those are always a last
I
resort. Is
know.
that the same for
Same,
you?
yeah, because
Yeah.
those are the ones you really, and the primary suite, I people will take from there, and that's the one I'm
Mm.
always trying to
Me too.
keep
I'm
in
like,
because
no,
I'm
no,
like,
no,
"You
no, no,
need
no,
your
no, no,
space.
no. Right.
You gots to have your spot to
Gots
close
to. Mhm.
that door."
And talking about investment, when you go to buy a house, the two things that are most impactful are the kitchen and the primary suite.
That's so true.
And then I seem to think that the mud rooms are equally as important. It used to be utility rooms, but now I'm seeing that drop zone where you just drop all the stuff and things, and it usually has a door to close. If it doesn't have a mudroom, people aren't buying the homes. I
I
don't know if that's countrywide or if we're just
That's a
seeing that
great
here in our
question.
area, but it's a thing.
It is a thing,
Mhm.
and I wonder if we are in a place that is so, we have more space. So the
Mm.
houses we're building are a bit
Uh,
bigger. So maybe because a lot of places like being in California and all of that, there's such a limited amount of space. You might not even have a full on designated laundry room. It might just,
mm.
so we
Isn't
are
that funny that
lucky.
you know that from your experience?
Yeah.
And
Cause I
I've
mean,
always had the Southern Texas, lots of
yes.
land houses
Yeah, that's
and been
so
used to that.
true.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, you visited me when I had the place in Santa Barbara. And I mean, you walk in that back door and I mean, it was
You're in the
a
kitchen.
bet you're in the kitchen
Mhm.
and
Maybe that didn't strike me so much because we were there on sort of a
vacation
vacation
feel.
type
Yeah.
feel,
And
yeah,
yeah.
instead of usability for how am I gonna raise 3 kids in this home?
Yes,
Right.
because I thought a lot, how would that work?
Mm,
Where do all their backpacks, all the
yeah,
things we're so spoiled with here.
yeah,
But being there and when I was there, I mean, my gosh, we had tiny places, so I
right.
couldn't imagine having a spot for my backpack. How luxurious is
Can't even
that?
imagine.
Um,
I think the other thing that is so big for us, is being available and how we set expectations of how we're going to communicate with our clients. Because again, when you're the boss, you're the owner, you're the titan, you talk to people whenever you want to talk to
mm,
people. But in our relationship with our clients, how do you handle that?
that's so interesting. So I thought you were meaning we're our Titan. We wear all the hats, but
No,
you
no,
mean
no.
our
The
client. Yeah. So
clients.
then they come in and
Yes.
they want us to talk directly to us and at any time that they need, right?
Right.
And there's a little bit of give and take on that.
Sure.
Certainly have gone more to the, during business
Yeah.
hours, and I'll get back to you if I can't phone's off or something like that. Because in meetings or anything we're doing,
Yeah.
my phone's flipped over and it's off, and I'm not responding to another client because the current client has my full attention.
Mhm.
So try and make it as much like that as
Yeah.
possible, right? But
Right.
things do come up, and you try and be mindful of that. And as long
Yeah.
as it's not every
Sometimes
week,
I'll have sometimes I'll have a client and I call them rogue shoppers, and I will literally tell them, even in front of their partner, "You have got to stop buying things until we get, like, a plan." But sometimes I have these clients and they want to help themselves, but they cannot help themselves, and so I'll say, "Can you please send me a text of the thing with dimensions before you buy something else?"
so you're just like, even if it's on the weekend, because I mean, rogue clients is a whole
It's
entire episode.
that's a whole other episode.
But
Yeah.
no, that is so. How do you let them know? Because some people just, it's fun, and
Fun.
it is fun, and
Yeah.
then you give them the inspiration at the kind of when you start that design concept, right? And
Yeah.
you've given them, they know what the inspiration is, and then they're like pulling more, right, or
Yeah.
whatever. How do
Yeah.
you
They get into it.
reel that in, or do you have some people who have hard like, once this is done, no more Pinterest boards, no more we're done with all inspo, we're on to
Right.
design.
Right.
Do you have a hard line?
So I just because you add more things to your Pinterest board doesn't mean I'm gonna look at it, right? You can add away. You can blow it up. You can set it I don't wanna say set it on fire, but you can just get Pinterest going, and that's okay. You can do that. That doesn't mean I'm gonna look at it
Okay.
after we've started the design process. Um, eh, and that's sort of where I draw that hard line, but what I've learned is maybe if I do have a rogue shopper is to say, "Okay, for your study or your craft space, you can buy all the little things and stuff and that you would like to, and you can just go to town. But for these main areas where you've asked me to be responsible and I'm putting my name on this with you,
Yeah.
uh, let's hold off on those things until we fully develop the design
Yeah.
and then go back and revisit those things.
I
But
like that.
it's
That's
hard
fine.
because you can't really tell people not to buy things.
Right.
But sending me text messages with images and stuff that has been helpful because sometimes I'm just like, no, or I don't love that as much as I want to. That's one of my favorite lines. I don't love that as much as I want to. And that just kinda I'll get some sort of smart response.
Ugh.
But I communicate, I text and email my clients. I
Mm,
allow them to text and email me. And I just say, uh, I don't always have my phone on the weekends or if I'm traveling, and so you can send it to me to kinda have your brain dump, but
right.
that does not mean that I'm going to don't hold your phone waiting for the response
Right.
if it's after hours because chances are it won't be an immediate response.
And I think that's fair because again, like you said, these are people who have their own companies or working big,
Yeah,
worlds, and their downtime is Saturday or Sunday.
that's right.
And that's so I used to take it as kind of a 'cause because my personality
Yeah,
is very I can't have any unread texts, I can't have any unread emails. Uh, all if anything is lit up on my thing, I'm like, "Oh my god,"
yeah.
and to my to the detriment for sure. Because then
Mm.
I'm like, "Oh, didn't really and I forgot to respond."
Uh-huh.
But so, basically, every time something dings or comes through on a phone or computer,
It gets
I
your
feel like
attention.
I have to
Yeah.
respond, and then it's taken this has been like therapy, is
Yeah.
realizing they're just getting it off their plate,
Right.
brain dump,
Yeah.
and, I don't have to respond till Monday. They're not expecting that, but
Right.
at least I know because I know for myself, "Oh god, today at the gym, I was gonna send you a selfie
Yeah.
because you were blowing up my phone. I'm hearing all this text coming through after I texted you because, of course, I did it on the way in,
Yep.
and then I was gonna do a selfie to show you where I was, and I just see all I see is a halo of gray, and, I'm like,
And then you're booking your hair appointment?
I'm booking my hair appointment. I'm not sending you
Yeah.
the selfie because 'cause I'm like, "This picture is nowhere. This is not out in the ethers." But it's just one of those, and I'm like it's 7 o'clock in the morning, but
Mhm.
I had thought to do it last night, but I didn't wanna blow up her phone last night.
Mm.
So, anyways, it's just that moment where you're like, "I need to know
I
now."
need to know this
Yeah.
minute. Mhm.
So, or I
And I
need to
think
get it
the
off my
other
plate now.
important thing that we have talked about is that when it is business hours and somebody does call you and your phone is on and you see that person that it's a client,
Mhm.
answer the phone. Whatever the conversation is, even
Yes.
if it's going to be a difficult one because something isn't going according to perfect plan,
Yeah.
that phone call is gonna be a much easier phone call than the one 2 hours from now or tomorrow. Answer the phone, and it might be a happy phone call, you never know.
I
I
know.
have been pleasantly surprised.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because it goes both
It
ways,
does?
and the pleasantly surprised one gets far less airtime than
Yeah,
this so I wish everyone I just assume good intent.
I love that.
But they don't aren't always, so we do get nervous, and that is, oh my
Mhm,
gosh, the amount of times, you just look and you look at the phone going, I don't have it in me right now,
mhm,
but I gotta do this."
mhm. It's 'cause we have our names and big lights on the front of a building, so you
Yes.
answer
You
your
answer
phone.
your phone,
That's
and
it.
it's always better to have done it that way than to
Yep,
respond in a text or an email.
yep.
You're right, and
Because
that's
what
huge.
we do is not brain surgery, right? And it can be fixed. Whatever it is
Can be
that is the
fixed.
issue of the moment, it can be fixed. And I'm continually reminding people around us, this is not, nobody's flying an airplane into a building, nobody's driving into a crowded street. This is a home, and we have the luxury of having the resources to work through whatever it is that we're frustrated by at the
Yeah,
moment. And it does happen.
yeah, it does happen, and oftentimes what comes of it, I like that it's an opportunity for creativity, so you get that call and you're like, "Oh gosh, what? Wait, they thought it was this and it's this," there's a measurement problem or something else. It happens on the job site that they didn't anticipate, right?
Yep.
But always fixable,
Always.
as long as you have a good team and a
Mm,
contractor and that back you because there's been many times that I have
100%.
been the reason, that something maybe was mismeasured or, I ordered a sink that came in, 2 inches, whatever, size off, um, and I have to eat
Mhm.
that, and because
It's called a cost of
yeah,
doing business, baby.
it's marketing dollars, but you
That's it.
have to own it and then
That's it.
scramble like a
And do the
crazy
right
person
thing.
to get it fixed.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly
there is
correct.
never gonna be a time where because with that and we joke marketing dollars, but it is because somebody will badmouth that to everyone who listens. They might not say anything that you fixed it
Yeah.
or whatever the good
It's way more
experience,
fun to talk about the
but I'd
yeah,
much rather keep my name out of their mouth in a bad way. So, and
that's who
it's
you
who
are
we are.
at your core.
We will make
Yeah.
sure that this thing is taken care of. But you're absolutely right. Everything can be fixed on these job sites.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think also you were talking about having a good team. A team can be good and have each person looking out for their own interests, right? The builder can be looking out for themselves. We can be looking out for ourselves. The architect can be looking out for themselves. But if everyone is looking out for the client and we're back to sort of reframing the entire process and talking about this is about the client's dream and we're all here because the client has a dream and that dream overrides everything. And if we're all focused on that
Yeah.
purpose, everyone should end up winning, including the client and all of us individually.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I think sometimes when we have a selfish member of the team, and we've all been on projects like that, it makes it more of a challenge. And so the team is everything.
It absolutely is.
Mhm.
Because behind the scenes, we're working with
Yep.
them.
Yep.
You know, the client hopefully only knows. I kind of
The
equate it
have to
almost like
knows.
parents, and not that the client is like a child at all, but parents are just put on a happy face to make sure everything's great at home. And then behind closed doors is when they're like, oh, I
Yes.
forgot this. I didn't sign up Billy for this, or we don't have money, whatever the thing is. But the kids don't have to be privy to it. Clients don't have to be privy to
Yep.
all of the nonsense.
Yep.
And that's to your point, though. The good team is never talking about whoever might have been the whatever missed something on the deal, but not calling that out
That's
ever.
right. That's
And
right.
there's been times I've had a contractor or something kind of, you know, throw us under the bus for stuff that we do, or
Or
you
maybe
know,
didn't do.
yeah, and
Mhm.
budget wise or whatever. And it's always a very awkward conversation because you're literally having to backpedal or
Right.
kind of stand up for yourself in a way that you're like, what just happened?
And it
And
robs
so
from the client's experience
because
totally
totally,
unnecessarily.
totally unnecessary, because now they're in the middle of this thing that's really awkward for everybody, that is unnecessary.
Right.
And the client
Right.
shouldn't have to deal or be the go between.
Yep.
So, yeah,
And we talk about that at contract signing about there will be things that happen that we keep from them. It is nothing that will impact the budget or the finished product, but knowing that we will effort things to be exactly the way they expect them to do and that they don't have to see sort of the behind the scenes, which makes me think about remodeling. Remodeling is truly a shit show. I mean, there is not any other way. I mean, can you think of another way to put that? I
no,
don't know. It just
no,
is.
it's a good show to watch. I mean, the shit show is
It's for a
fun
good
and it's
reason.
all that, but
Right.
it doesn't go to plan at
Ever,
all.
ever.
No.
And so I don't care how great your drawings are, how great the design is, how many meetings you've had, how lovely ever, there is something that's gonna go wrong. And
Yes.
so, we call it the sausage making, right? And so the more things about the sausage making that the client doesn't know about, the happier they are with the process and certainly with the results.
Yes.
And we talk about that roller coaster, right? So and I think that we shared this back and forth
Yeah,
several
you shared it
years
with me
ago.
because I had created a what to expect when you're expecting a remodel.
Yes.
And then was talking to you, and you then shared your, like, trajectory of what it looks like to remodel,
Yeah.
the emotional
Everybody
roller
is
coaster.
so excited when it's demo day, right? And on the chart, it's very high, right? The point on the graph is very, very high. And then we start doing things like framing, rewiring, moving HVAC, um,
The
the
most
plumbing.
unsexy things possible.
They could you can't make those things
Mm-mm.
sexy. They take a long time. They cost a lot of money. They're ugly, and it just seems like nothing's happening, and I'm telling you that's the lowest part on the graph. Everybody's freaking miserable at that point. They think it's never gonna end. And then they get excited when you put sheetrock on,
Right.
right? And then when they go to paint, everybody I literally had a client say this to me last week. She goes, "Well, we're gonna paint this whole 6,000 square foot house, right? And it's just gonna take a couple of days with the crew." And I'm talking about trim, cabinets, all the walls, all of the things. And I was like, "Let's go with 6 weeks, maybe 7, because just a week and a half is just
Just prep.
prep."
Just prep.
And if you're not spending that time, you don't want that product. We're talking about and then you're spraying the cabinets and you're anyway.
And then more sanding, and
Yeah,
then more this, and
yeah,
that. So and so one of the things that's helpful is when you've had projects done in your own house, so you know kind of
yeah,
what it feels like.
yeah.
When we've had our huge remodel in 17,
Was this
I
after Harvey?
yes,
Uh,
the
and the
paint,
water was how high in your
4
house?
feet,
Oh, 4 feet.
4 feet.
Okay, just 4 feet.
But I will say, I will take a flood over a
Yeah,
over a fi
you
we
were
went back
talking
into
about
that
that.
house so many damn times to get stuff or move stuff. Anyways, I felt like I was playing hide and seek with our painters in the house. It was like a Where's Waldo I'd come in and, I couldn't ever find the fuckers. I'm Are they sleeping? But, like, the they're so high from the fumes at one point. I don't know if they're napping. They're like it was so Matt and I were losing our ever-loving minds. It was 6 weeks.
But we're so thankful for the painters.
So
What
thankful
would
for
we
the
do
painters, but I'm like,
without them?
"Where the F are y'all?" But I feel her because it
Yeah.
was like, "No,
This is 2 days.
this is 2 days." And no,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
7 weeks.
yeah.
It's slow as molasses,
If
and
it's
you're
gonna be
gonna
done well.
if it's done well.
Now,
You want
can
it
people
to be
go in
done.
and slap paint on a wall?
I know.
Please do not write into us and tell us that your brother-in-law painted your 6,000 square foot house in a day. We're talking about something completely different, and then they get excited about paint, but, cabinets take a long time, and then just the finishing and punch is 2 weeks on a remodel, and talking about that whole process, so the roller coaster
It
of a
is such
remodel is beyond.
but paint in of itself
Mhm.
so, we do as much as we can on the front end, right? You're
Yeah.
doing all the selections, tile
Mm,
selections, you do the
mm.
guides and every possible thing, hardware, lighting, everything. It's all in the spec book and it's ready to go. And ultimately, it's always, do you have your paint colors? And for me, there's always an inspo
Yep,
at the very beginning,
right?
but paint colors are the last thing. And that goes up ideally, like floors are in, plastics off the walls, and we're throwing paint color up for samples. And getting the buy in on contractors
You do
sometimes,
samples? Oh, I don't allow samples.
you just trust the color's gonna be amazing in the 6,000 square feet. Oh my god, then this is where this is so exciting because I am like 3
Because
colors.
it would make I just in my experience, it's not that I don't allow it. That sounds really, bossy, and of course, we've done samples before, but my experience is that when we do samples on site, when all the lights maybe are not in because we don't put in the can lights and everything until
That's what I mean,
after
this is at the
paint,
end.
and so
Oh, you're after paint.
right, because
Yeah,
you
no.
can't I don't allow the light fixtures to go on until after paint because of the overspray and blah, 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 and so it's gonna look different, and this is what I just have found that it causes massive delays and anxiety in clients, and this is when they bring Aunt Betty and Uncle George and neighbor Susie and,
Yeah.
whomever from the gym over to look at the paint colors, and they all have and the project shuts down, and so I am like, "This is where you're gonna have to trust me. This is an amazing color, and under this 27 Kelvin light, we're gonna be good." And
Hmm.
I gotta knock on wood.
I
I
know,
don't
I'm
have
like,
any
"Okay,
wood.
I don't know." I just for me
It is a big
personally,
decision, and
it's
I get you.
every color looks so
Yeah,
different
huh,
on the wall.
yeah.
And with that floor versus this and this light coming in this room, and it's totally different than that room, so we're gonna have to alter.
Mhm.
So I'm a
You're a
total
big
big fan
sample
of
person.
sample person.
How funny that we
So
both
yeah.
we've never talked about
No, I
that
know,
we
that's so interesting.
process that completely
Yeah,
differently.
totally different.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Sorry," to the contractor, "Sorry, you're gonna get these trim colors, and you're gonna do and yeah, and
Mhm.
they're like, "There's 18 colors here." I'm like, "Mhm, there's a lot of
And you're
wood
gonna like
in your
doing all 18 of those.
because they're all different,
Yeah,
I'm not throwing one color in a whole thing, and
yeah.
it's not all cabinetry." Anyway,
No, I
so it's all
understand.
very much so that for me is tricky
Mhm.
because you want it all pretty in a bow and to hand over,
Right.
but that's that always that last part
Sort of a
on mine.
TBD.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yours is not a
Mm-mm.
TBD. So
Now,
you've got your whole
if
thing
I told
that's the
you
fly.
that in the 25 years that I've been doing this, that there wasn't a time that I repainted a cabinet, nope. I have repainted a cabinet before, but the number of those is minuscule compared to the amount of time that I would spend trying to have the client pick from their samples.
Or
And
like
so
you said, having the entire tennis team come over
I
after lunch,
can't.
which is my favorite.
I
But
can't. That's all you know what? That would be a great podcast is when we talk about road clients is when they have their personal design team who are not designers
oh my
that,
gosh.
inform their decisions and how to handle that. We need to add that to our
That
little
is because
list.
I think, and I bet people who are listening, whether you're a designer or just somebody listening, you've either brought friends in to get
Mm,
their opinion,
mhm.
or you've had a client who does, and they do it to everyone, I
Yeah.
think.
And part
Um,
of that is normal human
yeah,
behavior,
you're
right?
excited, you've got this great thing going on, you wanna share it.
Yeah.
It's just when they have now said, "You've had 3 different opinions about that table,"
Right.
and maybe that's not
That's not it. I liken it to probably a doctor. When I go to a doctor and he tries to tell me or she tries to tell me something, I'm like, "Yeah, but when I Googled it, it said," and they're like, "Awesome, Google doesn't have the degrees that I have from, UT Med School
Yeah.
and
Yep.
Baylor and the like, so do we wanna listen to this or do we wanna" not that we're the end all be all, but sometimes if you have too many opinions, it's like
Well, and that's I guess it is which is another discussion probably too, but clients fall in love with the thing or they're really happy, and then they question themselves or second guess it if somebody comes in.
yeah,
And unfortunately, you watch it a lot, natural people like to find
fault.
fault.
Yeah,
They just sort of like to be the turd in the punch bowl a little bit, or
yeah. The
I don't know
turd
what
in the punch
so
bowl.
maybe that's just
I love you. You
true.
make me laugh.
But just the one thing that's just like,
Mhm.
wah wah,
Mhm.
Sweet
That
Ashley's
robs
beautiful,
from that
totally
yeah.
steals it, whatever the reason, who knows? And then it makes her second guess or them
Yeah.
second guess what they've decided,
It's like,
and then
why?
then you have to reel it back in such a
Mhm.
way that then they're really unsure.
Yep.
It's just an awkward spot,
Which
and
is
it's
the
always at the
psychology
end.
part of our business,
It's the
right?
end
Ugh.
too, where we're just like, "Oh my
Oh, I
god, can
cannot
we
with this.
just
Do this
it's
cocktail table.
beautiful, let's be done.
Mhm.
Everything's perfect.
Yeah. So
Um,
that you can actually live.
so you can move in."
Yeah,
Yeah.
and live, yeah.
So
So reframing the experience for the client, it is such an important part of what we do. We do it every day, sometimes in little spurts and sometimes in hour-long segments, but it's important. It's part of what we love.
it is, and it's why people hopefully include us in their projects
That's exactly right.
because we've got their best interest at heart and,
Yep,
steward their money as best we can, so,
that's
yeah.
exactly all to protect that dream,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, it's
Yep.
their dream. I'm like, "How many people get to do this?" I've never got to build, it's a beautiful thing, so
That's awesome. So
well,
what is something, I was thinking about what is something that you've sort of noticed, recently that sort of captured your attention?
maybe because 'cause I'm facing the parking lot, but, cars,
Mm.
colors in cars.
Mhm.
I'm a car person. Are you a car person? I don't know this about you.
So, I'm not a car person. I'm just not a car
Okay.
person. I enjoy driving a nice car, but my husband could bring me when it's time when this one shits the bed and I need a new one, and he'll drive up and I'll be like, "Thank you," and off. But I know that about you, that you are a car
I
person,
do
and
like
girl,
a
you look good in your cars. I'm not gonna
Oh,
lie.
no. Well, you always have beautiful cars, so I just kind of assume maybe you're a car person, but if it's a Tom showing up in it, poor
I don't
Matt's
like the I don't like the car shopping experience, so,
take me
yeah,
nuts. I
can't.
I I get high. I love the car shopping experience. I love the moment, like, leaving and I just
Mm,
anyways, cars are something that
yeah,
eh, just enjoy.
I
I
love
like
that.
buying them. I like driving
So
them.
what have you noticed
So
recently
with
with
the
cars?
cars is that whole thing. Is the colors. The colors have changed. You don't really see those, like, vibrant like the reds, thank goodness, because they kind of
A
there's a
thing.
reason they get insurance, I think, was higher on them, right? But, like, things are just muted and softer and earth tones, and I don't know, there's these, like, matte colors and wrapped
Like
things.
this heathered blue is something that I've been noticing, and I'm like, "Oh, that's so beautiful." Do you think you'd get tired of something like that?
That's a good question. I'm because I go get them so every couple years, so
Mhm.
I don't think I would, but I always buy the color like, for color. I'm not a black
Ah,
or white person,
ah,
which I know a lot of people are. They
yeah,
only have black cars,
yeah.
and it's so fun to watch you drive up and whatever,
Mhm.
but I'm like,
Interesting.
I buy
I
for
have
color.
noticed that too. So it's kind of like, does the car industry following the interior design industry that's following the, fashion
The Pantone,
industry? Yeah,
who creates
no.
first? It's fashion. Isn't it start with fashion,
I've
then it
always thought
comes
so.
to us,
Then
and then
interiors and then
then
cars
cars.
and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so
Eh,
maybe. So, yeah, which would make sense because we've talked about noticing the color changes in our,
yeah.
yeah, so that's a fun one. How about you?
Just the same thing
Same,
we were
cars.
talking
Yeah,
about is just the car
cars.
thing and sort of interesting watching the different trends trickle down through the
I know, it's
industries.
cool.
And so, well, I loved
I
today's
know, it's so good to
show, and
reconnect with
I am
you.
so reminded about how parallel our firms are,
And then those
just,
just those nuances, though, that are different and that make me happy that there are differences to all of us, and I think
and that's okay.
that's okay. The experience reframing the experience for the client is that exactly, like, we're not for everybody.
Right.
Find your match, though.
Yep.
You might
You know, I
not
have a shirt that says that, "I'm not for everyone."
and I love that shirt that you
I know.
wear.
I
It's
should wear that
perfect.
someday.
Actually, it's a good
I
one.
should wear
But
that
it's
someday.
true, like, you
Yeah.
don't have to just because your friend used me as a designer doesn't mean you're gonna love me. So
Mm-mm.
go to Rainey or go to there's a million of us. We're a dime a dozen.
That's it. That's
But
it.
yeah, but at
But I
the end of the day,
enjoyed
just do
today's show
yours.
so much. So that's it for today's show.
So if you have any topics you wanna chat with us about, email us at hello@reframingdesign.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at Cassandra_brand_interiors.
And you can follow me at Rainey Richardson Interiors on Instagram, or you can follow both of us at Reframing Design on the IG.
So like, review, and follow wherever you get your podcast.
And be sure to share us with your friends and family. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.